Well, welcome. We're now yet again for the second week a gang of six, slightly different gang of six. I have cycled back in, not literally, metaphorically, I suppose, and we've cycled Adam out this week as we're unusually recording on a Tuesday, which means that Mrs. Adam has taken preference for her book club over the Zoom account. So we're now back to a gang of six, and we're bringing back all of the usual features, the full set this week, the full epic monochrome, multicolour, multi-format, Panavision, widescreen malarkey with all the different theme tunes inserted in there in various places. And without further ado, we can look at the podcast, which has only just been released from last week, and try and see if we can answer some of the questions that we didn't actually answer last week because we didn't actually ask them. And I will now go round the table, and starting with Andy. First of all, the question is, do charm bracelet charms have a role in wargaming? Yes or no?
Yes, because they're used for diplomatic leverage. When you spend too much on an army, you can say, how much did you spend on the charms? Or look at the charms I bought from you. So indirectly, they do have a powerful effect.
Fine. In paying for mercenaries. Mr. Leroy Mayer, what about you? What's your thought on charm bracelets? On what basing do you use for charm bracelets?
I prefer 30mm by 30mm squared for charm bracelets. But yes, I do think they have a good use because you can always bribe your opponent, or if need be, look at the shiny, shiny, jingle, jingle, jingle while you move your troops to the right location.
That's a good answer. Mr. Saunders, what about you? Have you drilled any holes in the bottom of them and stuck small magnets onto them?
I've got the bases through from war bases. They've arrived.
But would you mount any charm bracelets on them? That's the question.
No. But I was one of the charm bracelets. I was thinking more of those Live Strong yellow rubber bands that people used to wear, the sort of cyclist things.
Okay,
but
that doesn't cut it with the good ladies.
And I was thinking, there's certain war gamers you can imagine wearing those rubber bands with Live Strong and things like this. You know.
Okay, that's deep. Tamsin, what about you? What's your charm bracelet theory? Does it weigh the painting arm? Does it weigh the painting arm down too much?
I haven't done it myself, but I have seen people use charm bracelet charms for making a sort of decoration on terrain, particularly fantasy.
Right. So that's a proper wargaming answer. Any particular type of undercoat you recommend using on charm bracelets? Something that goes well on sterling silver?
Halford's matte black.
Halford's matte black, always a winner.
The default answer.
And Peter, have you embroidered any into your luxurious hair?
Well, I think it'd actually go quite nice. A couple of gold charms there, perfectly well.
We're talking your actual luxurious hair, not a vajazzle type thing going on there.
Not bedazzled, yes.
No. Right.
Well, funny you should ask, but no, I won't go there.
No. That's why this is an audio only podcast, right?
But Peter, in your case, Peter, you could put hairspray on and then find you made it gold.
That could be it.
I did actually manage to scare my kids by telling them I had purple hair at one point.
Right. Okay. Next question: is a washing machine or a tumble dryer better for mixing paint? Peter, we'll do in reverse order. Which one would you staple the paint to?
Staple the paint to for mixing it?
Yeah, washing machine or tumble dryer?
Because, I don't need to shake up the gold can that much.
True. All right. Tamsin, what do you think? Which domestic implement is best for mixing paint?
Probably the washing machine. If you go out of the two, washing machine, but even better, you can actually get a 3D printed attachments to go onto drills.
Right, okay. 3D printed attachments going to a drill to mix paint. Okay, that's deep.
Is that a Dremel attachment?
Bound to be a Dremel attachment. Mr. Saunders, what about you? Washing machine or tumble dryer? You were the one who was using them last week. Which one do you use to mix your paint?
My flat is definitely not big enough for a tumble dryer.
Oh, right. So you're a washing machine only.
It would be definitely washing machine only, yeah.
Right. Mr. Leroy Mayer, which one do you use to mix paint?
Tumble dryer, because you get the better vibrations.
Much better vibrations. And Andy, what kind of vibrations happen, best for you?
Well, if I ever tried it, I suspect I wouldn't survive the vibrations. But if I had to guess, I'd guess a tumble dryer would probably be a better way for doing it, simply because of the circular motion and mixing it all up.
Fine.
I think the washing machine will win it because of the wet palette there.
Yes, wet palette. There's a wet palette moment. I'm sure that's something for later.
In fact, you get bubbles and soap in it though, Peter. That wouldn't be good for it.
Consistency though.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys do realise you're meant to put them, I take them to the outside, not put them in?
That wasn't in the manual, Tamsin. At no point in the instruction book did it say.
Specific, you know? Now you get it with the colour of the paint when I use it next.
You're getting technical now.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, on that painting-based moment, I think that's definitely time to start going around the houses and asking who's been painted what.
This means war.
Mr. David Saunders, you're as usual painting as we speak. You're waving something up there. It looks like a man in some armour. He's got a little shield. Who's he? What's he up to?
So the Ottomans are done as far as they will ever be done. Well, as far as they can be done. Very pleased with the results of that. And I've now moved on to a Frankish army.
Oh, wow, that's happened quickly. Those arrived this week.
So that, I mean, it's basically taking advantage of their Kickstarter was finishing last weekend. So I thought I'd spin a quick last order in there. And I've bought an absolute shed load of Frankish impetuous foot. In fact, I've rather overdone it.
Right.
It was an impetuous purchase.
Sorry, as a wargamer, you can't overdo it. That's just not.
Starter army, which was 64 quid, which is a bargain in their Kickstarter, and that consists of six bags of 24 infantry.
So that's 18 bases, even if you do them 8 to a base. You can
I've
probably do 7. You can probably do 6. You're doing 8 to a base.
I thought maybe I wouldn't have enough. I bought an extra 2 bags, so I think I'm going to wind up with 24 bases of Frankish impetuous foot.
Wow, that's way too many. That is definitely.
I worked out a list. I thought, right, how many can I actually squeeze in? If I have ordinary generals included,
unreliable.
I think I can get up to 31 bases in an army.
Aren't they what?
Well,
8 points each or something?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's not all impetuous foot. There's some bowmen. It's a mediocre bowman, of course.
Right.
Well, Dave, if Burton happens next year and you know, the 300 point or 350 point, you might be able to use it all.
Well, exactly. I mean, but then I've got to paint the damn things as well. And I painted 4 bases up, and I'm not entirely happy with it. But I've got plenty to practice on.
I suppose that's true, isn't it? And what else did you get in the Kickstarter? What else has been thinking about getting onto the pile? It can't have just been $1 million francs.
The original Kickstarter, I got to get Justinians and camels and things like that. But then since then I've done a Scythian army via the Kickstarter rates, which was a bargain, and then this is my last army from the Kickstarter. So I think
they are nice models, aren't they? I think they just paint up for someone like me who's not a great painter. I think they just take the paint very well.
They're really, really nice. I mean, the warband are very warbandy, shall I say that? They're all very Ugin.
Nice bit of variety in most things, yeah.
Well, I'm a bit more of a more static person, but I've tried to paint some with like rugby shirts because they're Franks.
Oh, excellent!
The stripy jumpers.
All right, so
Dennis the Menace crew, yeah.
Not these new lycra ones. No.
About the results of that, but we're you know, as I say, I've got plenty of figures to base it on, to practice on. And,
is there cavalry in that mix as well, or is it all foot?
So the starter army is 64 quid for 6 bases of infantry, 1 of skirmishers, and 1 of cavalry. So it's
I think you mean 6 packs rather than 6 bases.
6 packs, yeah.
Sorry, it's 6 packs.
And
That's
each
4 figures in a pack.
you can probably get 3 or 4 bases out of. Because packs are like 20 something, isn't it?
24.
Yeah, they're more than 24. They're more like about 27.
Yeah,
So
they're certainly generous with the figures, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I won't be talking about anything else but Frankish impetuous infantry for the next 6 months.
Right. Yeah, but you said that about the Egyptians, and you said that about the samurai as well, I think. So you managed to chew through it quite well.
Well, the chariots have arrived as well, so I can vary it up with the Egyptians.
Oh yeah, I saw that Fighting 15s, they've got some new, is it Hittite infantry as well, they put on Facebook that look fantastic. Very similar style to those Egyptians. Maybe that's another army. All right. Going up the page then, Simon, what have you been doing this week? Did I see some more of those ancient Brits make it to the top of the pile?
Yeah, so I was going to try and do some more Renaissance, but then the warband just sort of impetuously arrived on the table, as they tend to do. So another 7 bases of those have been painted up. So I painted up, 'cause with all the options I had, I've painted up 3 bases as Javelmen. So they're using the Dave Saunders proprietary limited patent pending idea of 5 to a base for Javelmen. So it's nice and obvious. And then I've got the heavy foot, they're 7 to a base. So, and then I used the last of my infamous decals.
Yeah,
So,
right sizing. Right
yes,
sizing.
I've used all of them now. So they've all been used up, and they just need to be flocked, but they've come out really, really nice. So hopefully if campaign, the one that's meant to, was meant to be in Milton Keynes at the shopping mall, that's meant to run in October. And the idea is that the Gauls will appear at that competition for their first time. Just like the idea, because I played a practice game, I think it was the idea was dropping down 12 or 14 warband and going, here, deal with this, and then see what happens with the rest of the army. So
Yeah.
I've now got enough options to do all the warband is medium foot, heavy foot, or chariots.
Fine. Yeah, that's the best way.
Things you can do with the DBM army, which you then repurpose to ADLG. You have options.
Yeah, plenty of options. Good. Okay. And Tamsin, are you? Because obviously I missed a week last week. Did you finish the terrain? Are you still on scattering?
Still on terrain.
No.
Still on terrain.
Rain.
So there's this. So it looks like concrete. Wow, that's a really. I would have actually said they were concrete if I didn't know. So there's a painting story about how you managed to paint concrete that looks like concrete. Then there isn't, a Vallejo concrete brush thing.
I could share the
next to their tartan.
I could share the mix.
It's just a mix of different grades.
They look really good. I like those.
Like the graffiti on it. That looks very neat.
Yes, I could definitely see Judge Dredd behind one of those with his lawmaster going, "I am the law."
He'd just be popping some of those people.
So those graffiti decals are home printed ones, which I did on clear decal.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Since then, I printed off another sheet. This time on white decal paper, which actually works a lot better. But the colours are much more vibrant.
You must have to trim them really carefully.
You have to be careful scoring around to minimise the amount of white surrounding.
With that decal paper, do you have to spray varnish it? Do you spray varnish it or something?
Spray varnish and then apply microscales, liquid decal medium.
Right. Okay. You've not tried it just with straight water slide then. You've used the decal medium as well. You need to add something over to protect the actual. Well, if it's an inkjet printer, you need to fix the ink. So you probably do need varnish for that. Also painted up all the MDF tokens for Infamy. Oh yes, you got that a couple of weeks ago, hadn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that looks grand.
Yeah, because your last podcast, I just got the PDF. A few days later, I got the
actual book
and stuff.
Okay.
So I had fun doing those, and also painted up a building.
Of course, and there's always a bit of MDF building material to be done, isn't there?
Look at that.
No, that's beautiful.
I mean, Tamsin, your models are almost good enough to go into a rules book and say, here's how to play some of our games, and here's the arcade, here's a lawmaster. I could definitely see them in a rule book.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. No, it's definitely worth it. That's really amazing. That's really, really impressive. Good.
Yeah, I had fun painting. So I finished that building this afternoon, and started on some more little bits of scatter terrain that just should finish tomorrow.
Good. All right. Jumping down the list, Peter, what have you been painting this week? I saw something about Austrians.
Away from Austrians.
The Austrians are done, or have you just stopped?
No, they are done. I have got a couple of spare things, such as cannons and such like, as spares, because as part of the rules set with the Battle Empire, if you've got some of the units which are 3-pounders, you can designate it by having the guns behind. So I've just got a couple of those to do. But no, Austrians are done. I've just got to finish off some basing and some varnishing of it, but I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and do all that. So in between, with various mad things going on, actually playing a few games, I've started on my Spanish, feudal Spanish.
Feudal Spanish, okay. Wow.
So
which figures are they?
Donington, some Jeanettes. It's just to supplement what I've already got for that period, because a lot of it already, seeps over as it does. But I picked up some Jeanettes, the javelin guys, elite javelin, like cavalry javelin, and then of course, you start looking at it, and I also ordered the flags and everything else. So I thought I've just got to get some more medium knights. So I dropped Damien a line at Donington, and he helped me pick some out, because he's actually got some Spanish knights, because he does the military order ones, because Spain had its military orders. So of course, a good excuse to get some more. So I've got some of those and some more Spanish knights, so I can set them set up with the right colours for Navarre, and I've got the flags for Navarre and everything else. So I can have them to sort of spice up the army to make it look more like feudal Spanish.
That's good. So is that like a lots of oranges and reds and things like that, and yellows, or is there different?
There's a few, because the military orders were a bit different as well. So it's a whole mixture.
Right. So what kind of military orders were there in Spain? Because in my world, there's always the black and white and the white and black one. Is there a different
they
set?
have red and white.
Sorry?
They've got red and white.
They're red, yeah. They're sort of St. James, the Santiago, and all that sort of thing, I think.
Yeah.
But they're dressed like the Spanish Inquisition sketch in Monty Python, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, basically.
But when someone plays you, they will.
With the
When
cushion.
someone plays you, they will always expect impetuous medium.
The Spanish
knights,
Inquisition.
so it won't really be a surprise.
Well, it's
at all.
all the Reconquistas and all that sort of thing. So you've got the order of them. So they had about half a dozen. There's some still around now. But there's got some nice, interesting colours and sort of background. So I'm trying to find one that's not too crazy.
Okay.
You don't want to look too far into the history of some of them.
No, that's probably going to be quite dark things then. All right. And Andy, what about you then? What have you been doing? 2 weeks ago, you were just experimenting with drills.
Yeah, well, I did a bit more mucking about with the drill, but in between with that, I finished painting the Roman Legionary pack, which was part of the Kickstarter filler in, and did the Seleucid pikemen. I'm now painting some Breton cavalry for the Norman army, and then I ordered some more toys in the meantime, and I'll be starting on them when they hopefully shortly. Things like Carthaginian elephants, hopefully, because I'm thinking of doing Carthaginians for the for warfare, assuming warfare happens. So I would need at least one more elephant for that, and I got a Greek temple as a base, and I got some Thracian peltasts, and then when I was sorting out the rest of the wargaming cupboard on the weekend, I found 2 bags of Thracian peltasts.
Oh wow!
But the War and Empire ones are quite nice. They're all armed with the Rompoya, and they're nice positions and poses, and they're
Fire.
What's that?
Yeah, the two-handed sickly type thing,
Yeah.
Oh,
Two-handed
right.
cutting weapon. Yeah.
The Romans had to especially reinforce their armour to fight the Dacian Romfire.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
And they've got the open.
really weird long one that's like a Japanese sword.
That's the one. That's the Romfire.
Yeah, that's right. It's a sword that curves up at the top, but it's kind of like two-handed or 1.5 hands. Yeah.
Take your arm off.
You found a couple of packets of those then as well after you bought
Yeah.
some. Oh right.
That's right. Yeah.
So how many have you got now? Have you because if it's War and Empire, that's a 24 in a pack. That's quite a lot.
Well, yeah, I bought a pack of 24 because don't regret having bought them because they're quite nice. But the rest of the peltasts, I think, are a mix of kind of sword and javelin-y light peltasty things.
Yeah, my Thracians are are Zeiston, which are very nice as well, but a little bit different. They're a little bit bigger than the War and Empire ones, and I spent an awful long time painting them, and they're kind of neat. But I think I've got 4 bases, and 4 bases with Romfear and 4 bases with Javelin, or Javelin and Spear.
It's about as much as you need, really, isn't it? Yeah.
As much you need, unless you're going for a Thracian army. But it's, you know, suddenly in ADLG, you're kind of going, is that close enough to a Thracian army that I can do that? And then, do I really want to do that? But no.
Because somebody said to me the Thracian cavalry are apparently they're a bit distinctive. I don't know what they've got, some special style of headgear or something.
Right. I think if I used the Thracian army, they wouldn't be particularly distinctive at all. They'd look a bit like Gallic ancient British cavalry, I suspect, for that to be the case. All right. Okay. Well, look, certainly from my point of view, I've done an awful lot of painting this week. You know, a lot of stuff using some very unusual paints. There is Dulux exterior pure brilliant white in 5 litre tins with a kind of a 3-inch brush. Done a lot of that.
So I was saying, what scale are you painting? Is it this 1 to 300 or 300 to 1?
I think it's
white Dulux. So you're doing Austrians then?
Yeah, white Dulux. I could have done Austrians. I've basically got the inside of a double garage, which is now looks like, if you squint, a line of Austrian infantry from the Napoleonic Wars. And it's only breeze block, so I think it's probably about as solid if you actually charged into it with a fully armed cavalry horse as well. And doing that, and then are you going to flock it and?
No,
I think just putting any kind of mold type growth is an anathema to me. So as well as using the Dulux pure brilliant white, I've been attempting to get rid of flock effect on bits of skirting board by using a kind of 3-layer technique. It's not the foundry 3-layer technique. It's been a paint called Zinisa BIN, which is a base coat that you use to keep as stain block. So it's basically almost a poly enamel paint that you put on, and then cover that with a couple of coats of Zinisa white anti-stain paint as well, to really seal up some areas and leave them with a perfectly matte white finish, great for undercoating. But nothing's getting through.
The name of that thing sounds a bit like the sort of stuff you'd use for nerve gas.
I think it might well be. I suspect there's a common history in it, but it's kind of allegedly extremely effective. It's the kind of thing you look on Amazon and on other kind of building and painter sites, and people kind of who appear to know what they're doing go, this is the stuff that works, don't buy anything else. So I will find out in another few weeks whether it has actually worked. And then I did that other thing that you always do with painting when you start like a big project, which was the floor of a garage, which I was trying to paint with. You never quite do the preparation quickly enough because you're in a bit of a hurry. So you start by painting it, and then with the second coat, you only get halfway across before you run out, and then you go to the local store and find that they don't have another tin, and you're going to have to order it by mail order from Amazon. So I've got a half-painted dark grey garage floor, which is going to be another project next time I go down there as well. But definitely, I can really recommend, probably about an 8 or 9 inch roller. Really is quite effective for getting those small details. I think you probably need quite a strong wash to pick out the real subtlety after it, but in terms of getting coverage on a garage floor, I think it's an absolutely superb piece of brushmanship on that one.
To be honest, I think I'm looking at some of the pro-painted figures on sale on eBay. I think they might have discovered that technique before you.
Yeah, I think there is actually. That's one of my one of the things I do every now and then is look on eBay to see what is the least good value figure on eBay. I think this week, other than a couple which just recur forever, this week I think I saw 2 of the 50mm.uk, the old tabletop games ranges. There were 2 mounted Roman standard bearers of 50mm cavalry, and they're okay, but they're a very old range, and they've been painted and gloss varnished like toy soldiers of days of yore. And I think someone was asking something like £6 plus £4 postage, and you're going, that's £5 a head for figures which are available currently for 35B, and you would have to strip them down. They're almost useless. But it's, you know, some people don't quite know the value of what they're doing. But I'm not going to be putting any garage floors or garage walls on eBay anytime soon. And
because the shipping alone is quite expensive to get a
really
whole garage.
Yeah, the shipping would be really quite awkward.
Well,
the amount of bubble wrap
from eBay.
Horrendous.
I've got something coming from eBay, a nice little Dremel.
Oh, you dremeled up. You've dremeled yourself up. So which Dremel did you buy, Peter?
The Dremel 8220.
The 8,000. I think mine's only a 4. What is there? Dremel inflation.
Just got to get with the Dremel scaling, you know.
So what was it about the 8200 that first attracted you?
It was cordless, and then Andy told me about variable speeds, and then Dave started showing his off, and I was like, well, you know, why get an 8 why get a 4 when you can get an 8?
Cordless, wow.
And then you start looking at the accessories, and I had to sort of like pull myself back a bit after finding the accessories. You know, at the start when you were saying about how to mix paint, I'm sure it could do that, including made coffee maker and everything else. It was like you start going through the accessories list, and it starts getting a little bit crazy. So I'll settle for another bit, chuck bit, and some drills for now. But I know some people, such as you, Tim, were saying about, and Simon was saying about a whole workbench.
Yeah, the whole Magic Uppy Downy lever thing is just wonderful. It really is. For the 6 times I've used it.
Every now and then I go. I think it's B&Q or Homebase. They occasionally have that on special. And you walk past and going, I don't really need it, but
it's just because.
You can put the drill on the top, and then you can bench press it down. So
it just goes completely straight down, so you can hold the thing that you're drilling a hole into. Yeah, exactly.
You see, the one accessory that really got me was the chainsaw sharpener.
Yeah. Well, for your other career as a juggler, is it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just thought it's, you know, for the apocalypse it would be perfect.
That's true, actually. Yeah, the coughing apocalypse that we're all diving headfirst into. Okay, well, look, that's this week's painting over.
This means war. This means war.
So I think after we've done the painting and talking about what figures that we're going to put on the table, we normally have a quick run around and look at what figures have either put on the real or now the virtual table as well. So, Andy, you're normally king of virtual gaming, I think, in this group at the moment, the most active one who's able to get away with doing this. What's your week on Tabletop Simulator been like this week?
1 win, 1 loss. I played Dave on Tuesday, and we were doing the Persians, because what we did last week, as you don't know if you picked up on yet, was Simon and I were talking about a Persian list, having, you know, random.org it the week before. So we actually made up the army list and had a game with it. And then Dave, I used that army for a game with Dave on Tuesday against, what were you using, Dave? There were Scythians involved, right? Scythians with a Thracian ally. And I went down in flames. I mean, I think I took 23 out of 26-year army on the way, but Dave won that one.
All right. So was that a dice-based thing, or was it just Dave being much more skillful than you, or how did it all pan out?
Bit of skill.
Of course.
Bit of skill, yeah.
And an army which I nicked off one of the Italian, a guy from Trieste. It was his army. It's the first, when we went to Rome, it was the first game I played in Rome. And I was using Alexandrian, and my Indian ally threw a 1 on the first go. And then his flank march of 6 Scythian medium cavalry came on in the second go. So I thought,
oh dear! So you were the barber. Quickly,
I'll write his list down and I'll paint that at some point. And he painted the Worn Empire. And it's a really beautiful army, and I liked it. It's a good army.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Then the following night, Wednesday, I played Dave Ray from America. We now got a kind of weekly game going, and I was using Ordnance French. He was using Burgundian Ordnance, and I won that one.
Excellent. Or was
No,
that
well done.
an ordnance off? Was your French better than the Burgundians for a reason, or?
Yeah, I don't think it was hugely lucky on the dice, but I mean, I've got a way of playing with an ordnance French army now, which seems to work for me, and it basically involves being the defender and hoping you get a hill or a field to park your infantry on or in, and that seems to work reasonably well. It's got an allied corps, which, depending on who I'm fighting, will either be mounted or dismounted, and a bunch of elite knights, and
Okay.
we
Well, I think it's good if you've got an army that you can play successfully defensively, because that means that there's some flexibility in the play style. Because it's very tempting always to try and go forwards and push forwards, but I think that self-discipline of trying to draw the enemy onto you or something and do that properly is still quite an interesting different way of playing sometimes.
Well, the week before I used that army to beat a Hungarian army. And last week it was against Burgundian ordnance, so it works against foot. It has worked against foot and mounted armies. I'm sure other people will beat me from time to time, but I'm happy that it's got reasonable flexibility even on a one list competition.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dave, talking of people who beat Andy, it sounds like you beat Andy then this week. Yeah. How did that go? What's your version of that story?
It was a bit of a shooty. Accomany versus Syrians was a nice, proper historical game. Andy defended, which stopped me going into the steps and defending myself. I used the Thracian ally, the Plains Thracian ally, which is a nice set, a unit of, group of 4 javelin men.
Wow, that's unusual.
2 light horse, 4 javelin men, 1 light foot elite. And that's a really nice little command, those.
So what did that do? Did it just run into terrain and mess around?
No, it came down the centre of the table, took out his war wagon.
You never took out my war wagon.
It threatened the war wagon enough. It held up.
The Thracians are running around in the middle trying to keep away from my Sparabara.
It tied down all your, those 4 javelin men tied down all your immortals and stuff like that.
Yeah, I should have been a bit more assertive with my infantry centre. If I had, it might have been a different game. But hey ho, it didn't happen.
You those mediocre camels right the way down the middle of the table to get murdered.
So, Dave, has your Apple Mac basis? Have you managed to work out the left and right clicking and things like that to get the hang of that now?
Well, no. Now you mention it, I think it's giving me RSI. Or tennis elbow at the very least.
That might be all the painting you're doing.
Yeah, it might be all the painting. It might be those samurai.
Gaming. I'm pretty sure it's the gaming.
Right.
My flatmate's threatening to move flat, and she might be taking the mouse with her, so I might have to buy my own one or something.
No, you might actually have to buy a real mouse.
The TTS is good. I'm getting there, and I just need to find some more opponents now.
Well, I think this week it looks a bit grey outside at the moment, so maybe it's a better week for online gaming then. Not quite as good for drying the paint and stuff outside. Okay, Simon, did you get an online game at all this week, or?
No, I got a game on last week with our friend Tommy from Ireland.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So,
fantastic.
Yeah, so he reached out and said g'day, and we had a game. So we didn't do it via tabletop. We did it the old-fashioned way. He jealously showed off his garage/wargaming room.
Wow.
And we had so he had all the miniatures on his gaming table, and we just pushed him around from there. So he had caroling in Frankish, and I brought feudal Spanish. And so it was a mass of Petrus cavalry versus impact cavalry and dross foot. And we managed to get a mutual destruction. So
fantastic.
I got his baggage, he broke me. It was a thing of true beauty. The only thing in the entire army that didn't get into combat was my levy.
Wow.
So, and both armies were 24 odd elements each, so they were big armies.
That's a lot of losses then, because I think I've snuck in a few Carolingians on the tail end of Dave's Kickstarter after having painted up those 4 units of bow-armed cavalry a couple of weeks ago, and then thinking, yeah, I might as well buy the whole other 20, 30 elements, 20 elements to make it a proper army. So I think I've got some coming. But how does that actually pan out as an army? Is it because it's a mix of impetuous and impact and some elite and some guard and all sorts of things, isn't it?
Yeah,
It all
so
goes forwards, but
yeah. So Tommy's composition was he had a Breton ally on one side, which was impact cavalry and lots of spearmen, plus a few random other foot. Very little in the way of shooting, but he did have a lot of scary mounted. He had on the other flank, he had this very large and very scary Carolingian Frankish, the guard cavalry, which was about 6 or 8 wide of heavy cavalry elite facing me with a strategist. Wow. And it's like,
yeah, that's coming at you.
Terrifying.
Yep.
And then in the middle, he had 8 or so spear, just normal spear, who walked up the line on the table and said, "G'day."
Yeah.
So
that just
my mad impetuous all went spontaneous, and off we went.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
It was good fun. We had cavalry
They
going
don't
to hard
have to
flanks.
charge heavy foot, do they, Simon?
There's have to versus want to.
Fair enough. Okay.
You've got to give it a go.
Yeah, so we had spearmen charging cavalry breaking off, the impetuous cavalry managing to break through, bursting through, then getting charged in the flank. There was body parts going everywhere. It was a really, really good game of two armies that were equally matched from drossness level, and both of us had a bit of luck here and there, and it was fun to play with an army that wasn't knight, impact, elite, heavily armored, or an elephant. We've all got a +1. Let's see what else we can do now, and just
see what else we do.
Really dance around. So I had trying the idea of bowmen sneaking out and taking a pot shot and then running away. But as soon as they could shoot, a cavalry could charge them. So mediocre cavalry were actually quite useful because they started hunting bowmen down, going, well, I'm +2 in the first phase. I'll give it a go.
Give it a go. Try and run them down. Wow. Okay.
It's good fun.
Yeah. Tamsin, did you put any Judge Dredd figures on table, or has it just been painting this week?
Not yet. It's just been painting.
Oh, right. Okay.
Painting and MDF assembly. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Decorating.
And Peter, what about you? What have you managed to take on any small children or anybody online?
I did. I took on my youngest, Nick. I was trying out feudal Spanish, and he decided he wanted to try something with heavy infantry, so he took Vikings. So it was quite an interesting one because going up where you've got some medium knights and a few other Almogavars and things to a wall of Vikings with two-handed choppy elites and one-hander heavy infantry and such like. It was quite interesting. First one ended up would have been a draw. We kind of run out of time trying out different things and getting ourselves back into it. The second one I won for the simple fact I ran away from his biggest bunch of two-handed choppies. So I managed to basically escape them and focus down. He did a learning exercise of medium foot, what happens when they meet a bunch of impact knights.
Yeah, I imagine that's a lesson you learn the once quite quickly.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good from that aspect. So we're looking forward to a rematch where he's going to deploy various fiendish plans on me and everything else about how he's going to get his own back. And true to him, normally he does, to be honest.
Yeah, he learns quickly. That's good.
Yeah,
you're going to give him Spanish to play with?
Why? They're mine.
I can see that coming.
I can smell that coming. Yeah.
So, remember, Peter, it's only a game unless you're playing your offspring.
Yeah.
In which case it's
I
war.
The offer of turning it around so we can alternate armies, but he likes the idea of trying to make a whole bunch of heavy infantry work. So he's got various plans in mind for me on that and how he's going to take me down. So knowing him, he usually comes up with something suitably fiendish.
Yeah, I must admit, I've used, I think in a competition once, I used Russ with a quite big Viking ally to give, then you get a load of spears and supported spears, but then there's a cutting edge of the Viking axeman and stuff like that to sit in the middle, but which just makes you a bit more resilient against cavalry. And you can just trade off the hundreds of hit points that an all heavy infantry army does have against time and just pushing through boards. But I wonder if you're all Vikings, you're suddenly a little bit more vulnerable to being charged by cavalry without that spearman bit to stop you.
Yeah, on the first game, it was the two-handed choppy that really came into it because, if they win the first round, you've got the +1 on top. It mitigates the arm, and straight away you're on 3 points down to 2 or even 1, compared to heavy infantry with 4. So, it really starts to make a difference. Okay,
interesting. Well, I think this week for me, I've had a couple of successful engagements against a cream tea. That was very, very successful. I'm very much I managed to get the jam in first before the clotted cream, which is, some people think that's not a valid tactic, but I found it very, very effective for demolishing the scones, which was really useful. And then 3 different engagements in which fish and chips came off much, much worse as well, which has been it's been quite a successful week for me in terms of taking those things on. And in a town that's famous for pirates and also famous for a bit of Renaissance, where William of Orange landed, and where also the part of the D-Day invasion fleet departed from as well. So there's been a bit of gaming, bit of history, but mostly just taking on cream teas and fish and chips with quite a notable degree of success.
That's got to be done.
Do I take it from that you're basically looking at 3, if not 4 different armies then to add to your collection? So you've got Renaissance, you've got World War II. With the fish, I'm saying it's some must be French Napoleonics for the invasion of Fishguard. Gotta be. I can hear it coming through. And with the pirates,
it could be trawlers for 1972 against the Icelandic.
Yeah,
it could be the Cod Wars. Actually, no. I think there is. I'm trying to remember back in the day when before all of you were born, when we used to go to the competition in Bath, which was quite legendary, and get completely stocious. We'd go down in the morning and start drinking on the Friday morning. So by Friday evening, it was just a bit of a mess. And I think there was one point at which we were trying to name DBM armies, which is effectively the same as ADLG armies, really, that had a fish theme. I'm just trying to remember what some of them might have been. Abasquids, that was one of them. And it was just, sorry, what was that, Dave? Frankfish. Frankfish, yes, later Frankfish, things like that. Early Frankfish, middle Frankfish. There's quite a lot of them there. So there are more of them, but Abasquids,
they are the Mongols. They're the scourge of cod.
Yes, the scourge of cod. Yes, it all does work. But yeah, so some cod-based things. But I think I had been trying to discuss what to start painting next week. But that's another section later in the podcast.
This means war.
So having talked about what we played and what we painted, we now dive back in history to the world of Sean Bean swearing, although I think we might have done that because I'm trying to rack my brains back a couple of weeks when we did the Spanish thing for not the American Civil War, the Napoleonic Wars. And I think Napoleon ended up back in Europe as we dive into the next episode of teaching Timmy about Napoleon. So Andy, you're kind of the king tutor here at the moment. We haven't got Adam to interrupt this week, which
no, I do need Dave though to say, Andy, I think you've missed something. So
right. Okay, that's now an official part of this. Then this is the catchphrase. Well,
Andy,
I think you've missed.
It just keeps me honest and helps me from.
Am I right in thinking we'd done the Spanish bit, which was a bit of a sideshow, and there's a bit of a hokey cokey, and then Napoleon's gone down there, not sorted it out, come back, and then then they're somewhere around in Europe, and they've still
1809.
not done the Russian thing yet.
No, because
Yeah,
the Austrians asked for a mulligan, basically.
Right.
We need to skip back a few years to cover Central European campaigns.
1809.
Yeah, that's right.
1809. So this is something happening at the same time as nothing really that important or decisive was happening in Spain. Is this right?
Well, Napoleon was trying to sort of finish off what was going on in Spain, and then the Austrians got uppity and invaded Bavaria, which was an ally of Napoleon.
Now,
sort of southern
excuse
Germany.
me for interrupting this early, but hasn't he beaten the Austrians before?
Yeah,
Yeah, fine. I haven't missed
He's
something.
three
I'm
times.
not getting deja vu there or something. Right.
It's a bit like, you know, when you go into your War Games cover and you go, oh, I didn't know I had all those there as well.
Yeah.
The Austrians are like that. They just come back with yet more.
Right. Okay. So the Austrians are invading Bavaria, which is reasonable because it is right next to Austria.
and that's right. It's got beer.
But it's nothing really to do with the French, is it?
Yeah, yes, the Bavaria is part of the Confederation of the Rhine and the Napoleon's allies.
Ah, okay. The Germans are allied with some of the Germans are allied with Napoleon.
Yeah, most of them are. Yeah, and Napoleon is down in Spain at the time, so the
Not necessarily willingly allied.
I was going to say the ones he's beaten, basically.
well, no,
okay.
the Bavarians did actually do quite well out of it. They got bits of territory added to them, and
Yeah.
So this
But
is basically
anyway,
like Rapid Vienna trying for an away game against Bayern Munich, and
that's it.
PSG come and help them allied to Real Madrid or something because the Spain bit's going on or something.
Well, they're fighting. Well, I mean, PSG are taking on Real Madrid at the same time. But
fine, okay, right. Well, they've got a lot of money.
So
it's all good.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the shirt colours quite match, but I'll
No.
Somebody can confirm that to me somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway,
blue and white
so
check flags.
large hordes of Austrians descend into Bavaria, and the guy in charge at the time in Bavaria is Marshal Berthier, Napoleon's chief of staff. And it becomes apparent that he's very good at transmitting Napoleon's orders, but coming up with his own plans and deciding what to do is not his forte.
But given Napoleon might be the greatest general in history, that's probably quite a good skill set, isn't it? Up to a point.
But indeed, but he wasn't cut out for independent command, but that didn't really become apparent until this campaign.
Okay.
Luckily, he's got Davout there, who's arguably even more capable than Napoleon, but Davout manages with his corps to put a brake on the Austrian advance until Napoleon gets there with the reinforcements. And you've got stuff like
that must have really, if the Austrians are going, Napoleon's not here, this is our go number 5. Oh, we stuck. Didn't they just lose heart when they heard he was coming or something?
Well, the French didn't actually broadcast it. I mean, they're just marching through the woods, and these Frenchmen turn up, and they've got to fight them, and the French seem to fight better than they do, and better organised. I mean, Davout did have the best corps in the French army.
Right. Okay. So there's Davout and some other bloke called Berthier, and they're beating up the Austrians because Davout's better than Berthier. And then Napoleon arrives anyway, just to really
mob-handed with a huge bunch of guys, including the guard.
Okay.
And then after a couple of battles, the Austrians are now hitting reverse gear and heading off backwards. And this was the situation I told you about a few weeks ago, where one Austrian corps took a week to advance 63 miles, but when they were retreating, they covered the same distance in 2 days.
Okay. Well, maybe the trains were running more efficiently that time, or something like that. That could be it, possibly. So the Austrians are retreating to Austria again, and what normally happens, from my now expert memory, means the Russians have arrived through Hungary and Switzerland, which aren't really countries. Does that happen this time?
No, the Russians are having a fight with the Poles.
With the Poles? Okay.
Yeah.
Are the Poles involved in the Napoleonic Wars?
Yeah, they're kind of friends of Napoleon. He's promised to support them and offer them, independence from Russia. So they're
keen on that. Yeah. They always have.
So
really.
Well, at this point, 1809, you've got before that, Poland had been split between Prussia, Austria, and Russia. But after the earlier
near Austria, no, all right, maybe
Poland had been. You had the independent state, the Grand Duchy of Warsaw, created out of most of that previously tripartite-owned Polish territory. There are bits of Poland that are still in Russia, bits that are still in Austria.
So how can they be on anybody's side if they're all split into three then?
Well, they make great lancers, and they're all over the place with lancers. So you can have them in the Polish army, the French army, all
Austrian
over the place.
Okay.
Russian army had Polish
lancers.
A lot
Very
of
good.
disaffected peoples around Europe joined Napoleon's army. So you had, Napoleon's army had a large consisting of Dutch,
Okay.
Germans,
Irish.
Poles, Irish, people who hated the English particularly,
Yeah.
and the other
No, it's mostly Europe.
Yep.
yeah, anybody who was anti-kings and things like that. So
They all piled in.
and I think the Polish are sort of like down that sort of line because they're trying to become their own state.
Okay, so the Poles, so Napoleon's somewhere in Bavaria beating up the Austrians again, which is probably going to take him like 10, 15 minutes. He'll probably stop for lunch. There might be a new culinary.
There was about
Was there a new culinary? Was there a new culinary invention?
No, it wasn't a
the
pushover
Austrians-
this time. The Austrians
it was
had,
about 8 battles.
yeah, the Austrians back off through Vienna, and Napoleon chases them through Vienna. Then they get to the far side of the Danube, and Napoleon's kind of stuck because the Austrians are on the far side of the Danube, and he can't quite get at them because of the time of year it is. This is April, May time, and it's the rivers are full of spate.
Yeah.
So he manages to get to a river, an island called Lobau in the middle of the Danube, and then he chucks a few bridges across and heads over. Now, before this battle, he sends his cavalry out to scout how many Austrians are around, and they report back there's about 5,000. In fact, there's about 105,000.
Oh, careless, slightly
Yeah.
sloppy. Yeah.
Should have gone to Specsavers. So so Napoleon's guys are coming across the bridge, forming a bridgehead, and all of a sudden they're up to their armpits in Austrians trying to kick them out.
Okay.
Just to make life more interesting, some more Austrians further up the river have let loose barges filled with bricks and stones and rocks and stuff. And with the river being in spate, these things are crashing, literally going along at a rate of knots and smashing into the pontoon bridges and breaking them.
Right.
So
Okay.
whenever Napoleon's army is about to do something useful, the bridges break and they run out of ammunition, or cavalry can't get across, or something like that. So at the end of 2 days of battle, the French heroically hold off the Austrians but have to retreat back onto Lobau Island. And that was actually the first battlefield defeat for Napoleon as emperor, the first time he demonstrably failed to hold the battlefield afterwards.
Even though he'd been beaten by a load of barges full of bricks.
His domination of the
He bricked
battlefield,
it.
his tactical domination, his tactical cause has been basically the Austrians have learnt how to fight Napoleon, and they've learnt, they've stopped the cavalry skirmishing around, so he knows what's going on. They've stopped him concentrating his core system. And at this point, the losses and the battles get bloodier and bloodier and bloodier.
So this is that American Civil War kind of moment when the Unions start getting their industrial machine together, but this time it's the Austrians.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And Marshal Lannes gets killed, and that's he was a personal friend of Napoleon. Napoleon got very upset about that.
Yes, he's probably the best general.
Okay, as well as Davout, maybe. So Napoleon's kind of got accidentally ground into the dust by the Austrians throwing brick-laden barges at him. And
this is a battle called Aspern-Essling.
Aspern-Essling, which is probably
Grain
kind of difficult to recreate on the war games table unless you've got a very big river and some rules for barges hitting bridges, which most Napoleonic rule sets don't really have much of, I'm guessing.
No.
Yeah, we'll just call them elephants.
Just call them elephants. Yeah, we'll use the elephant rules from ATLG. That'll be fine. So Napoleon's sort of on the wrong side of the Danube with an army that's got wet feet, and the Poles are kind of kicking off in Poland because the Russians are giving them a bit of a rub around. So I'm kind of anticipating that there's some sort of lurch towards Russia at this point, but
not quite. No. So what happens is Napoleon comes back for round 2 against the Austrians. This time he gets his act together, builds a number of bridges, makes sure that by now the river isn't in spate because it's now the summertime, and he crosses over with about 180,000 troops, and the Austrians have got about 150,000. There's a massive battle called Wagram, and at the end of that battle, the Austrians are beaten, and ultimately there's a peace treaty.
Because that always happens,
That
and
is-
then Napoleon
Yeah.
retreats, and the Austrians keep all
Yeah.
their territory, and then the
This
British
time
pay
it
somebody to
nicked
do
the
it.
Grenzers, though.
And Wagram
Right.
is very, very bloody.
Right.
Yeah.
And also he says to the Austrians, Josephine is not giving me any kids. You must have a nice white pair, princess. We'll have one of them. And that's basically what happens. So he marries the daughter of the Austrian emperor, and ultimately gives them a son.
Because you'd have thought, you know, that if he's going all that medieval stuff, does that mean he's becoming a bit more kind of emperor-y, kingy sort of stuff? Even
Definitely. He's
because
he's
that's a
worried about
pretty
his
kingy sort of
dynasty.
thing to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the European toffs have realised they can't beat him, so they're trying to make him one of their own.
So they're trying to marry their daughters off to him instead.
Basically, and turn him into, take the revolutionary bit out of it and turn him into one of themselves.
So does that mean that island in the middle of the Danube is basically like a Napoleonic love island with that Geordie bloke doing the commentary when the European kings are parading their daughters to him? No,
that didn't happen there. This is afterwards, but
that's afterwards. Okay, right.
The island is called Lobau, Lobau, and one of Napoleon's generals was made a Count of Lobau.
So that's more like Take Me Out with Paddy McGuinness, then, isn't it? And when they say instead of we're off to Fernando's, we're off to the Isle of Lobau, possibly. That could be it, really. That sounds good with us. And they're all wearing Austrian uniform. No, I'll stop this. This isn't really going anywhere at all.
No,
there might be a headgear issue. I'm not sure. I know at some stage the Austrian infantry moved from having helmets to shakos, but I'm not sure whether that was.
It was about then. They started moving over just about then to the
I was hoping you might know the answer.
Plus, they decided to up their battalions to it's like we'll try and outdo the French by making our battalions twice as large, effectively.
And even less
that's
manoeuvrable.
That's subtle. Good. All right. So Napoleon's kind of now got married to some Austrian prince's daughter or something.
Called Marie Louise,
and he's now back in Paris, squiring sons, and presumably what his brother, his uncle, his cousin, his tailor, matchstick maker are all running the country in that kind of egalitarian way that he's so big of, and the Poles are still having a kind of dust up with the Russians just round the corner.
Well, that's kind of tailed off a bit, but then by 1812, the Russians have decided they're not interested in the continental system. That's trying to shut British goods out of the continent, and Napoleon decides, right, we really got to go into Russia and sort these people out.
Was someone making overtures to him to suggest that?
But I think the Russian campaign is probably
that's probably a thing.
Next week.
I think it probably, even I know nothing about it. I suspect that's probably a thing. I'm just trying to work out. So what tempted him to do this thing that other people always thought was daft, or was he the first person to try something that was just daft? Because this whole Russia invading thing,
invading Russia over land.
Because there's a bit from 1809 and the island.
Well,
How did he get tempted to invade the Russians?
The only time that Russia has been successfully invaded in the past by land was by the Mongols.
Yeah,
they came from the direction.
And that was actually just a large reconnaissance force.
Yeah,
a lot of force.
Quite a lot.
It's like Afghanistan and
60,000 men and super die.
Yeah, but getting to this point at which Napoleon's on the start line, and if we leave the start line till next week, so getting him, politically, psychologically to the point of, look, we've got to invade Russia. Andy, you said something about the continental system and
if you remember the reason if you remember this was Brexit in reverse. The continental system was trying to shut British goods out of Europe so that Britain would suffer economic problems and then try and make a deal with France and behave themselves.
Right.
And that's why he went into. That's the main reason he went into Spain, or one main reason he went into Spain to begin with.
To stop them trading with the Brits through Portugal.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then the Russians, after 1807 and the Treaty on the Raft, they agreed to sign up to this. But by 1811, they weren't very happy with this anymore and started trading with the British and letting British goods come in.
So basically, there's a vodka versus ye olde English ale trade going on, and Napoleon's a bit narked.
Yeah, and selling them trees to build navy ships and things.
There's a whole
Yeah.
Baltic trading zone going on.
Yeah,
which
it was
as well.
perfect for the ships, for the masts.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, it's a
So
big trading thing.
So it's reverse Brexit trading through between Russia and the UK through Sweden.
Yes.
Is really what kind of kicked all this off. Fantastic. Well, look, I think that's got us to reverse vodka Brexit. What's not to like about it? But after doing our Napoleonic Wars section, I think it's definitely time to move seamlessly back in time, almost possibly 1,000 years or so. We're not going back to the Persians. That's last week. I'm getting confused. So let's not go back to that. Let's go back a couple of hundred years to the world of France. We stick in France, in fact. Let's stick in France and go back and look at the army lists of the famous French Ordnance List, number 234 in the AGLG book, which is a proper heavy metal, full fat, all the toys, clever little knights, all the rest of it, lots of interesting
There's
stuff.
no elephants.
There's no elephants, but nobody's perfect, as they say. And to have a look at what armies we've got to look at the French Ordnance. Now, I understand we've got Peter and Andy this week looking at French Ordnance. Now, so I'll just throw up Andy's army on screen. And Andy, if you can talk us through how this army is put together of Gaston de Loup, Jean-Thomas de Prévity, and the other one. You better pronounce that one.
Emolia Montatelli.
Emolia Montatelli. Oh dear. So talk us through how you've constructed this.
Right, okay. The French Ordnance List, you have to have at least, I think it's 4 Ordnance Knights, heavy Knights elite. And you also have to have 2 Ordnance Archers, which in most cases have to be longbowmen, although you can sometimes, in certain periods, change them into medium cavalry if you want. And the Knights can only be fielded as dismounted, unless there's elephants and war wagons and stuff, before 1466. So I've worked out that with this army, you can actually make an army which has got 1 corps of your heavy knights, and that's basically all it's got. But I've added a longbow to it to entertain and shoot up and fire support and stuff. The Italian Savoy men-at-arms is a non-elite impact knight, which adds, so you've got a fighting row of 5 knights.
Yeah,
and a light
once you've got
cavalry
4 elite knights, having 1 ordinary one is, it just gives you width, isn't it? You're going to be able to support them with the elites. It's a bit
Indeed,
of extra bonus,
the light cavalry crossbow can do the same.
Yeah.
Then the first corps, which has got the ordinary commander, has got a mixture of shooty and hand-to-hand people. It's got 2 ordinary heavy sword, 2-handed weapons, and an elite Swiss pikeman. That's 2 ordinary longbows, a mediocre crossbow, and a light infantry crossbow. And that can sit in terrain or ideally on a hill, and it can shoot and keep people at bay and put in a bit of fire support to bother people. But it's got 3 fighter units if you need to get stuck in. If things were absolutely desperate, I could put them into a field to do some fighting. The swords would be down 1, but if I'm fighting against, for example, spearmen or something, then I don't do that. But my preference is to keep away from terrain where the foot's going to need to fight, because most medieval armies, Western medieval armies don't have much terrain troops, so try and keep away from terrain if I can.
You can keep out of that.
And the third corps is an Italian Condortieri allied corps, and what I like about that is I take them as mounted, but I can, whether there's elephants or anything or not, I can dismount them. So if I'm facing an army which is primarily mounted, I've got 3 knights to add to the French Knight Corps. And if I'm facing a primarily infantry army, I can dismount the guys and they're foot knights.
Okay, so you've effectively got 6 heavy infantry if you wish. If you get those three heavy knight impact off their horses,
yeah,
which,
that's
which
right.
ties up, and
Yeah.
that's pretty solid. And I guess the heavy knight impact, they dismount as what, fully armored as well?
Yeah, they dismount as heavily armored two-handed weapon foot knights.
And then you've got
And
the textbook medium cavalry impact in there to give you just a little bit of extra punch, but kind of cheap to pop.
Well, yeah, well, you have
gaps.
to have with the Venetian option of the Condortieri list, you have to have 1 unit of stratiates, which you can take as medium cavalry impact or light cavalry javelin.
Okay, and then you've just got 1. There's only 1 light infantry there that I presume usually his job is to screen the knights, but you just assume
his job primarily is to screen the medium cavalry. But in the early part of the game, you put him as an outlier to hopefully trigger the enemy to make it difficult for them to come near. I mean, the plan with that corps is stick it in the middle of the battlefield with the camp behind it, so the enemy, it's very hard for the enemy to completely ignore it. And so if it does go hesitant, then hopefully it won't be going hesitant for long.
Yeah. So this is kind of a 10 or 12 wide combat with a few more shooty people as well in this one. And you're trying to get people on a, is there any particular terrain you'd always be would you be wanting to try and clutter up one side and assume that medieval armies can't go through terrain?
I think it depends what I'm up against. When I was playing against a Hungarian army last week, and I would try to put down as many fields as I can, because they've got a lot of stuff which is on horses, and therefore they're really not, you want to clutter up the battlefield for them.
Yeah, suddenly your longbowmen and crossbows become really effective in that, don't they?
Yeah, well, in my game against the Hungarians last week, these guys stood in the field and shot 3 enemy cavalry to bits, and the enemy cavalry cleared off in the entry. We followed them and shot them down anyway.
Yeah, can't do anything about it. Wow. Okay, interesting. Anybody else got any other comments on it at this early stage? Saunders, you've used this. Simon, you've used this list as well, I think.
I think the French Ordnance Army is it's the classic flick knife, Swiss Army knife. You can have any combination of all sorts of things, and I mean, virtually every time I see it, I see a different version. I mean, it's one big issue is getting more than 19 units in the army, I think, because it's all full of fancy, all dancing, really good stuff.
I've got 20.
Yeah, that's not just bad. Crept above that, hasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I think Andy's gone for the all knights version, which is, I mean, there's 2 ways of playing it, isn't there? There's one where you take the Swiss and you have the 2 Swiss pikemen, and you have a good infantry corps supported by very good knights, or you have to go for the very heavy knights. I mean, Andy, I think, has gone for the very heavy knights. Personally, I'm not sure about 1 Swiss pike. I'm not sure about.
Well, you can take that without having to take the Swiss as an ally.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think.
It just anchors that heavy infantry, doesn't it? It gives them a real anti-cavalry thing.
Yeah. I think I'd be tempted to take the Stradius as a light horse, because I think you can probably get him as elite. Are you allowed elite?
Yeah, I could take them as elite medium cavalry impact as well. I just haven't got the points.
Yeah,
no, I think I'd take them as light. I think I'd get some light horse elites in there if I could, just because it's my preference. And of course, I'd like my mediocre bowman in there.
Bow in pairs.
I've got one. I've got a mediocre bow.
Yeah, in pairs.
Dave needs a pair.
Yeah. I mean, even better if you can have an ordinary crossbowman or bowman with a mediocre guy shooting with him.
Well, it's got 2 longbowmen to support. So
have a longbowman, but have a mediocre bowman shooting with him.
Yeah, I've got a mediocre crossbow with a longbow.
Yeah.
There's no pleasing some people, honestly.
No, of course. Simon, what about you? You're a heavy metal guy as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I've been partial to a bit of heavy metal over the years. Andy has gone for an absolute shitload of knights, which is always quite good in my book. In some ways, I would have preferred an extra pikeman. 1 pike with 2 heavy swordsmen, 200 choppers makes for a slightly small Death Star or something to annoy mounted. You could split your mounted and get the swordsman, ignore the pike, then hard flank the pikemen, or if you can get 2 pikemen, I know it's always the challenge with this army, it just makes that heavy foot command just a little bit bigger, because you can often have sword, pike, sword, pike. So wherever you look, there's a big pikeman about to charge you mounted.
I suppose that's what kicks this army down to. That would kick this army down to 13. Sorry, to 19. You'd have to lose an ordnance archer and the light infantry, wouldn't you, to get?
Not necessarily, because well, you could do it by swapping out 1 Italian knight for an elite pikeman.
Yeah, possibly.
Both 13 points.
Yes, you can definitely do that. But it's definitely got a lot. It's got a lot of shooty. So in the period, you've got longbowmen, who we all know can absolutely make a mounted army's life an absolute nightmare. Plus with the crossbowmen shooting. Meanwhile, with 7 knights running around, you can definitely give most armies a hiding, because a lot of the other mounted
8 knights, Simon.
8 knights. Sorry. I haven't got my glasses on.
4, 5,
yeah, the stacks.
3,
yeah.
Because a lot of the other medieval armies in the high medieval don't get that many knights. So I think the medieval Germans can get close to it, but almost all of theirs are ordinary, where you've got quite a few elite. So it does give you that punch if you can get the first breakthrough. Then you can really start to wrap an army around.
The other thing is the Stradiates being medium cavalry. If I can get them on the flank of somebody, it's really going to hurt if I hit them in the flank with them.
Yeah, especially when you've got the Stradiot and the light horse cavalry.
You can get a lot of upsides with that, can't you? Yeah. You can really do something with that. Okay. All right, Peter, do we want to pass over the screen share to you?
How many knights?
And let you see if you can... let's see how many medium knights you can fit in this army that's not allowed any medium knights.
This means war.
All right, Peter, let's flip yours up onto screen then and see how that differs. So again, it's 1465. I'm first glance, I'm not seeing an ally, which is slightly changes the mix of things already, which is a good one. But talk us through your 3 commands here.
Well, 1465. It's the reason why for 1465 is because that's the last year where you can actually dismount the knights by choice. The reason I picked that is because I had the joy of going to the Worlds at Charleroi in Belgium and got my rear handed to me quite handily. I took French ordnance that time and learnt very quickly that it's very handy to have heavy knights who are able to dismount at your choice as opposed to theirs, especially when you come up against people like Swiss. So that's why I chose this period this year, because it's the last year you can do that. Then that then has a knock-on effect for what other units and what else you can choose. So I've got 2 commands of 3 heavy knight impact elite. So
wow,
they're the delivery.
That's punchy, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to go in. I've got another heavy knight impact for one of them, so that will be to spread it out a little bit more. And what I've also done is taken the elite bowmen. So as you were saying earlier, Dave, your favourite, have 1 mediocre bowman tied to an elite longbowman. They work fantastic. So they're there to work the edges and really, own that terrain, get a few shots in. If I can just take down a couple of the opposition before my knights go in, then that's perfect. That'll then just have that sort of domino effect happening. And that's what I'm going to aim for. And I want to get them to come to me. So that's why with the 3rd command, I've gone for the medium artillery. Now, if I get lucky, there's a hill with its name on it. I can just sit it on there and just pop away at people. Otherwise, it's one of those commands with a couple of heavy spearmen where I'm trying to get the enemy to come down to me. Either you've got to try and avoid it, or you've got to come towards it. Either way, I'm trying to get you to respond to me. And that medium artillery, it can still move up with the spearmen if needed. But it can be there and popping away at in this period. Quite often people are turning up with a lot of heavy knights or some foot knights or things like that, and the artillery happily ignores armor, so I can happily pop away with that. So that's the basic crux of this army. Got 22 units. There's a fair bit of light, so once things break up, I can then have the knights to sort of separate and have a light infantry off to the side, so you can keep having that local wins. And so that's why I've gone for the 2 competent commanders, because when I've played this a couple of times, it's almost like you get the first hit and then it breaks up fast. And being able to have that ability to have that little bit extra support for that one extra overlap really helped a few times.
Right. So do you see this as 2 wings of mounted knights as a default, with being supported by archers, or are you using those wings together to kind of get, mega overload on one flank, and then the sort of the little tiny come and get me army as the fulcrum? How do you actually set them up?
Well, you've basically outlined my 2 strategies. So depending on who I'm up against and what they are, that's where I've got to choose, depending on the terrain. Either I do that, have the 2 wings and say, come and get me if it's, say, some heavies or whatever. Or I can then stack one side, use the artillery, depending on the terrain and everything else, as a sort of like a hold off to stall the opposition, and a couple of light cavalry sort of like peeling off to slow down the opposition coming while I fix and take out the other side. So it gives me that degree of flexibility. So when I'm actually going into it to see what I want to do.
And would you only see these guys dismounting against elephants and possibly wagons, or is there a scenario in which you turn one of those mounted commands into a dismounted foot command?
If someone turns up with a lot of pike, they're going to dismount and chop them to bits.
Right.
Okay. They're basically foot knights.
Yeah.
Foot knights, okay, the pikemen are 2, but the foot knights, they've got heavy armor, they've got 2-handed weapons, they're still elite, they'll be going in and chopping nicely. And I would have the choice to be able to dismount. So I could even have the artillery popping away at their pikes as they come to my heavy 2-handed choppies, my knights, foot knights, and hopefully that can make the difference.
You take them out on that. Okay. All right. Dave, come to you first. What do you think of this one? It's not got that infantry centre unless one of the commands dismounts, which is almost an infantry centre, but it does have your, vote much trailed pairs of bowmen, one good, one bad. What do you think?
Well, my first comment is that everybody slagged off my Ottomans artillery in a micro command. And I seem to see Pete's taken medium artillery with 2 heavy spear. Well, they're not going to operate in terrain. So, unless it's a gentle hill open, I think I'd be tempted to find some points from somewhere to get some defences for the artillery and things. No, I quite like it. He's got the bowmen. You could put the knights on the outside. You can support the artillery and the infantry with your bowmen. So you could put knights to the outside. I think I'd be interested in looking for some heavy cavalry instead of the light cavalry somewhere. Maybe, you've got 22 units in the army. Good. I think, just to bolster it a bit. One thing I like to do with a
French... You're saying that 22 is too many, in a way. You can afford to go down to 20 with this for a little bit more grunt.
Yeah, I think, the one thing which occurs to me there is there's actually, strangely for Peter, there's not enough knights.
Right.
I think you've got 3 and 3. I think you're going to find yourself facing 4.
3 and 4, Dave. He's got 4 in the first corps. He's got an Italian Savoy men-at-arms.
One's an ordinary. I know it's only an ordinary, but I think, I'd like to take it on with the medieval Spanish. I think that would work.
That's an interesting point. Is 3 enough? Because the rest of the stuff is support, isn't it? The light cavalry is very much support, and then 2 bowmen to support. There's not an infantry anchor there, and you can't push those 2 spearmen from the 3rd command up as an anchor either. You're all in, aren't you? You're all in with the knights. They win.
The artillery in the centre of the table, and you've got 3 knights and 3 knights, and I think. Well, I know 4, and is there. I think maybe there's, but then this is. I think the ADLG in medieval is the most even fight, and it's all about your army list. And no matter what game you play, you'll find you've got a problem.
All the lists have got a problem. Simon, as our other expert for French ordnance, what's your kind of immediate reaction to this one?
I like the idea of the artillery having that ability of being able to reach out and touch someone at I think it's at 8 UD, stops any scary foot armies sitting at a range while they're mounted deal with you, because you can spread wide. I think that you can fire 2 UD each side of the artillery. You can really start to annoy a lot of infantry units or whoever sits in front of you. And being that you don't care about their armor, it's a great way of negating I'm the medieval Spanish heavy foot knight with elite and 6. They is quite effective. It does become a little bit of a weakness, though. I've tried it a couple of times with a very small command of artillery and spearmen. Sometimes people will just, charge it down, punch through the artillery in about a turn flat, and then life gets very interesting. The big mounted army, big mounted wings, all great fun. I think if you run up against like an elephant army, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Yes, I know you can dismount, but as someone who's been on the receiving end of a rampaging elephant with a dismounted army, it doesn't bode well. So
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Tamsin, have you got any thoughts on this one? Is this one of your kind of straightforward to use things that's I
think both lists we're saying tonight are relatively straightforward to use. I'm not certain which way I'll go on voting on this. I think I need to see.
Well, that's a good indication. They're both pretty solid lists, isn't it? I think. I get. Yes, and Andy, were you saying you've used a similar list to this online recently, or this is? Oh no,
I used a similar one to mine. Yeah.
In
fact, I played the list I used against. I played against Simon and Dave recently.
Yeah.
Using Ordnance French, using something very similar. Against Dave, I tried using a medium artillery, and I think you just had to pay too much to get it compared to what else you had.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I really do like the idea of that final command with the artillery and 2 spearmen and then a couple of lightfoot who run away as an anchor. But I don't know, Peter, would you be able to, what if you upgraded those spearmen out of mediocre into normal? I don't even know if that's possible in the list, but then would that mean you could actually possibly do something with them in a way? I just look at the heavy spearmen and go, as mediocre, they're almost padding. Along with the artillery, they can't go off and attempt to do something.
But for me, they are padding. I'll be honest. They are basically there to stop someone just sending one horse up against the medium artillery.
Yeah. And
the artillery is there to annoy someone with a lot of heavy foot and basically force them to react. And that's what I'm aiming to do.
It's only 30 points, isn't it? It's only 15% of the army. It's almost nothing.
Yeah. And if I can chip away at someone, I can draw them off. I can get them distracted. Meanwhile, I can then concentrate my knights and punch through. The knights there, they're heavy, they're impact, they're elite, they're not impetuous. So once they do punch through, they can turn. That's the delivery system. So it's almost like going back to the Death Star piece where you've got, say, a small command to distract the enemy. With this one, it's just cannonballs coming in, landing on the heads to distract them while I punch through. Because fine, I might be slightly overlapped on one side with the knights, but provided I can cover off on the other side, I'll only have the overlap on one. And with them being elite heavy knights, they're going to punch through most things. I'm not worried about that. And as long as I can punch through and I can hold off on the other side, I think it's got a pretty good goer. The other thing with having the bow and the longbow, I know Dave mentioned it earlier, that works well as a 2-punch combo. Instead of just having the 2 bowmen together as elites, which makes a massive difference. You're talking a mediocre bowman at 5, firing the same distance as the elite longbow, but all of a sudden the elite longbow is just that much more effective. I can't remember the actual percentages off the top of my head, but it really jumps it up a level.
Yeah, well, I guess
with
they're
the ability to do
twice
the
as
hits.
more than twice as expensive. So I guess they should be.
You
But,
can always elect to use the mediocre as supporting the
Yeah.
other bow guard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but well, that's the aim. You basically the bowman, mediocre bowman, is there to make the elite longbow so much more effective, because
too much
you
better.
just need those 1 or 2 hits for the knights going in, and then all of a sudden you're 3-1 up.
You've got a big advantage. Okay. All right. Well, look, shall we move to the wrap up then on this one? I think Dave, if I start with you, what's your thoughts on these two? The 2 wings of knights, or the more kind of mixed infantry and other bits and pieces one of Andy's here?
I don't think I'd do either with those versions, but I think I would go for Andy's version.
Yeah, and what tempts it for you? Because it doesn't, the other one's got 2 pairs of bowmen. It's got super Dave, it's been designed to appeal to Dave in the voting system, is what I'm looking at that one.
I think Andy's army's got more grunts to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the artillery in the medieval period is. I'm going to sound contrary to myself. I think with an Ottoman army, I take the artillery. With an ordnance army, I don't take the artillery.
Right, and explain that then. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think I would go Swiss, and I'd go for the Swiss infantry in an ordnance French army, supporting knights. But I don't think the artillery works.
It's probably the artillery not working. Simon, what do you think on this one? Which of these 2 would you say is the one to choose from?
For me, I'd be going Andy's option. It gives me slightly more options. Mass knights is great, but I have run up against some horror armies, either mass spear, mass pike, or even foot knights and all that, where you get the combination of foot knight, pike, foot knight, crossbowman. Where you run down as a mass knight army, you're always facing a bad combination. The artillery is a lot of fun. I know I've annoyed Peter with artillery in various games where, oh look, there's an elephant general out there. Here's a heavy artillery piece. Bang, hit, bang, hit, bang, hit. That's him resolved. So I do. The artillery is very powerful and can be very, very useful. But I think having a decent foot command with the 2 knight commands does allow you, especially if you can get like a waterway or something to lock some of the table down, you can start pushing your entire army across the table going, bring it. Everywhere you look, there's something scary and something annoying to deal with. There's no soft and gooey bit in the army.
Okay. All right. I think before we come to you to wrap up, Tamsin, I think if I'm looking at these 2, it is tough because obviously they're the same but different. I think Simon, just picking up on your thing, that concept of a decent infantry block that you can push across the table and make people react to. I think I look at Andy's list and I'm just not convinced that first infantry block is good enough. It's actually only got 3 combat troops, and then it's got a couple of bowmen and another crossbow, poor quality crossbow, but there's still only 1 pikeman and 2 unarmored swordsmen there, and the army is a little bit later, which doesn't give it the option of being able to dismount. So I think I can see in theory Simon's point that a good heavy command that focuses attention is a good thing to just shove in people's faces, but I'm just not convinced that command 1 actually is it. And then on the others, if they're fighting, it is 5 knights and 3 knights against 4 knights and 3 knights, so that gives an edge. But I just think Peter's Dave F's combos of longbowmen and mediocre bowmen, it's very easy to see how you're supposed to use them. The knights go in, the bowmen do some support, you're not going to be tempted, and that the thing I just think with Peter's, my tweak to it would be probably upgrading the spearmen a bit and losing the element count down to 20 or 21, because I just feel the spearmen are padding, and if they were ordinary, they could become something you could push forward and they just
can't
last.
be ordinary.
Oh, they can't be ordinary.
No,
Okay, well, maybe try and find something just a bit more resilient than mediocre spearmen. I think they're too close to being padding.
The date range precludes it, doesn't it?
Maybe the date range precludes doing something better than that, but I just worry they're a little bit padding. But I think I'd still go with Peters because it would be interesting, and it does what it says on the tin. I just think Andy's first command isn't quite grunty enough to qualify as a grunty command, if that makes sense.
Second pike.
Yeah. Tamsin, what do you think on this one?
I think, as I said earlier, both lists would work for me. I think on balance, I'd probably go with Peters, simply because the Condortieri allies, I think it's possibly too much of the army is tied up in that could stay hesitant, could be avoided.
Yeah, it's half your knights almost, isn't it? Yeah.
The commands defeated.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll go with Peters.
Okay. Well, look, in the absence of Adam, maybe we should phone a friend because we're on a tie at the moment. Or I'm just assuming Andy and Peter, you're both going to vote for your own, so there's no tiebreaker there. So we've actually got
a mutual.
We've got a mutual destruction this week. So fantastic, good, nice to have that one for a change. It's a mutual destruction.
This means war.
Well, with those two army lists compared, then I think it's time for it's time for our computer expert to dial in, fire up the bleepy modem, Mr. Leroy Mayer. I can see you reaching around the back of the phone, trying to plug it in. Nobody's going to make any calls. You're on random.org. You're on random.org. We can hear the keyboard noises. Ding. So please hit us with what random.org has gifted us with this week.
List 245.
It's another late one.
Later Byzantine.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's a really interesting one.
Wow, it's got lots of options inside it.
When we went to the Worlds in Spain, I think after the first two rounds, the top player was using this that was besieged Byzantines.
Besieged? Wow.
And everybody was sitting there going, what? How the hell did you know about that?
Well, okay. 2 years ago at Warfare, Clive was using later Byzantine, and he was either first or second at the end of Saturday, and he came up against Inaki on the Sunday morning, and Inaki won by 1 point.
That's right.
And that's how close Clive's later Byzantine was to being on the podium and getting near the winning.
So next week then, because it must be my turn, and I think that also means it must be Tamsin's turn as well. It'll be a Tamsin versus Tim later Byzantine, list 245, to see whether it's Trebizond, Paleological, if that's the word, the Empire of Nicosia, the Despot of Morea, the Despot of Epirus. There's all sorts of funky options there. Paleologian.
So will this be a TT simulator?
It could, possibly, yes. I'm sure these armies exist. Maybe we'll conjure up these lists on TTS, and some of us can have a game as well.
What, you mean I've got to download TTS then?
No. We'll find a way around it. But look, that's what we'll be looking at.
Tamsin and Tim.
Yeah, 245. That's what we're doing next week. Right. Well, with that, that's a fitting point at which to lurch into, a questionable army with a list that throws up lots of questions, and then I think it is time for the French questions, which heralds Andy's quiz. Fire away, hit us with your quiztastic answers from last week and your quiztastic questions from this week.
Right. Well, last week's quiz was about maids of honor. And I asked you questions about 3 ladies. The first one was, this lady was appointed as warrant officer by General George Washington after the Battle of Monmouth Courthouse in 1777, where she reportedly served as a crew member on an American artillery gun after her husband was incapacitated. During the battle, a cannonball passed between her legs, removing the lower part of her skirt, to which she observed, that could have been worse. Anyone know who she is?
It's Molly something.
Yeah, Molly Pitcher. Her
Molly
real name was
Pitcher.
Mary Hayes, but she was known as Molly Pitcher.
Okay.
Question 2. Armed with a pitchfork, this Welsh lady led a group of women who captured 12 drunk French soldiers who were part of the force which invaded Fishguard in 1797.
I haven't got a clue.
Not a Scooby.
I know this one. I'm
Oh.
trying to remember her name.
Come on, help.
Gemma Farr.
Jemima Nicholas.
Pretty close. I'll get half points for a Gemma for Jemima.
Yeah, very good. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Right. The third one is this Jewish widow became matron of the Chimborazo Military Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, during the American Civil War, and improved the recovery rate of patients by putting chicken soup on the menu.
Right. Okay.
Not a clue.
Penicillin.
Not a Scooby.
Her name was Phoebe Yates Pember.
Phoebe Yates Pember. That's a good double-barreled American Civil War name. Definitely. Did she have a massive beard? That was a big thing of the American Civil War as well, wasn't it?
No. I think only after a very long shift, probably. But
right. Okay, then. Good.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
So okay, then hit us with this week's questions.
Right. So this week's theme is called Missing Bits. Right. So question 1. Before Robert the Bruce died in 1329 and was buried at Dunfermline, he directed that his heart should be taken on crusade to Jerusalem before being brought back to be buried at Melrose Abbey. Sir James Douglas took the heart with him in a metal casket which he wore around his neck until he was killed on crusade, but in a Middle Eastern country.
In what country? In what country? Right. Okay.
Right. Question 2. On the 30th of April every year, the French Foreign Legion parades past the wooden hand of Commandant d'Anjou of the 1st Battalion of the Legion, the commander of a force of 65 legionnaires who in 1863 resisted a force of 2,000 to 3,000 enemies until the legionnaires were reduced to 3 in number. And what's the name of that battle?
Okay, French Foreign Legionnaires being wiped out, and we've got a wooden hand. So in terms of body parts, I'm quaking in fear at what the final question will be. But hit us with it, Andy. Hit us with it.
Right. Despite losing an eye in aerial combat in 1942, the top surviving Japanese fighter race took to the skies again as a combat pilot in 1944. Over Iwo Jima, he took off in a Zero during an American carrier raid to join up with a squadron of Zeros, only to discover too late they were American Hellcats and outnumbered him 15 to 1. He managed to maneuver the combat back over Iwo Jima, where Japanese flak drove off the Americans. His plane had not been hit even once during the air battle. What was his pilot's name?
Okay, it's a good story. It's a very good story. We will find out what his name is next week.
Question, comment les voir? Question, le trou est sans fond. Question, la légende le dit. Question, elle dit aussi. Question, c'est une maladie. Question.
Oh, French disco. Can't argue with it, can you really? Yes, 2 weeks away, and I feel like I've been missing it. But always glad to hear that coming back. So, look, as we get into the real end zone of this, then another quick rush round the group of 6, the gang of 6 here, to ask what's on the painting table for next week. So, Tamsin, I think you've already teased us with some stories of extra terrain, but there must be a point at which you've got more buildings than the actual mega city one, even if they're all made out of MDF. Are you getting to that point soon? What's on the pile for this week for you?
This week, scattered terrain. Probably another building, and hopefully some figures.
Figures? What kind of figures?
Some metal figures, i.e. cobblestone castings from Future Wars range. I've got a new news reporter team and some troopers.
Good. That will be something good for us to see then. Fantastic. And running around the screen, Peter, I can't ask you about Austrians and I can't ask you about badger hair anymore. What are we talking about now?
Yeah, well, the hair's out, so it's looking dashing again.
Yeah.
I've got my Spanish turning up. and I've got my Dremel turning up, so I get to drill various things to hold spears and pikes and knights and all those lovely things. So
Have you bought
I've
the
got the
spears?
accessories for it.
Have you actually bought the spears though?
Yes, I've got the spears. It's all set up. I've got, guys whitewashed waiting to be drilled.
Wow.
So, ladies and gentlemen, how many holes do you reckon Peter will come to in his hands the next podcast? Will it be both thumbs drilled through, or just a couple of fingers?
Guaranteed. It's like it just adds to the richness of the colours of the paint.
It really does. Yeah.
Lots
Yeah,
of pots.
Well, plus that you'll when I've got it, then I'll be finding various things around the garden that I've actually got to drill, sand, buff, or something else with the Dremel. So I'll be coming back with probably some sort of rust all over me from drilling next time. Rust-based
Dremel stories. Good. All right. Simon, what about you? What's on your shopping or painting list this week? The Brits all done now for final?
The Brits?
The ancient British. The colourful ancient British.
Yes. So the ancient British are now done. So I've just got to finish their basing, but that doesn't count. So if we get some decent weather, I'm going to be base coating my 6mm British moderns. So going from ancient British to modern British.
Yeah.
I've stripped all those tanks and they're ready to be repainted. And I've actually finally made a move on my 30 years war Swedish for ADLGR. So I'm just painting up all the yellow coats to make some of the big, scary yellow brigades, the big salvo units, the ones who are quite iconic.
What's going to be your guns? What's going to be your base colour for the modern Brits then? Is there are you painting straight onto the tanks with the final colour, or what have you got a plan for those?
It's going to be base coat grey, because that's the primer I could find, and then it'll be brown and different desert colours that way, because I've done the tanks in a deserty brown style of colour, and then with camouflage on top of that, because we've all done European tanks, and they get a bit boring. It's like green, dark green, green.
Yeah.
So the desert gives you a few more options, because I've got my Marines in a more mariney colour, and the English are more a brown colour. So it's quite different. Quite visual to see. They're the Americans, they're the British, and whoever else.
So the Charlie and the Abrams will stand out from even from tabletop distances, just because they're colour coded. Excellent.
Yep.
All right.
Shouldn't you be doing them in a sort of toothbrush tube colour? You get a tube, because they've got the toothbrush aerial, so sort of a toothpaste colour.
Well, you do need to keep your teeth clean. I do acknowledge that, but I don't see Colgate White being quite helpful in the desert.
It's not quite going to cut it.
Unless it's for UN peacekeepers.
Yes,
true. And I have done some markers with UN peacekeepers. So just because you can.
Just because you can. No, that's true. Andy, what about you? What's on the list this week? You've got you were telling it's Thracians, is it?
No. The Thracians are somewhere down there. I'm finishing off the Breton cavalry, and then I think I'm going to go straight to the Carthaginian elephants.
Right.
So I've got them for warfare if I do decide to do Carthaginians, and then I shall consider. But having found much more stuff to paint, then I should probably have to backfill on some of that stuff. I found my War Master fantasy armies, and I'm going to have a go if I think of it, if I can get round to it, of seeing how that works for ADLG, but with the fantasy armies. And then I've got 2 painted, and I've got two paint. If I ever get round to that.
Okay, and then Mr. Saunders, you've suddenly started an epic amount of far too many blokes with round shields and axes, is it?
Warband with Angon and with Francisca.
Yeah,
so
that's the full set.
The debate is, it's...
Is the debate, do you paint the lot or try and flog some to me?
I think I debate whether I put. There's too many variations.
Hmm.
I prefer them to be a bit more
It's an enigma.
staid. Yeah. I don't know how to base them. I mean, they look very warbandy, but then they just look like a bit of a mess, really.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know, I
half
think-
the fun of warband.
They're impetuous. They're supposed to be they're supposed to be charging forward,
Yeah, but
arms flailing,
they
beat
just
the
end
crap
up
out of
looking like a
things.
mess.
You're being too logical. Passion.
I don't know. I think putting, buying into the idea that you can fit 6 or 7 on a base and getting them more of a clump is actually not a bad thing.
That's what
Once you get 8, they are definitely in 2 ranks, and they look like ranked up figures that are irregular. But I think maybe try 6s and 7s and just get them a bit more.
I like the warband effect, and like what I like to do is put 2 at the back and 5 in a sort of semicircle in front of them.
Yeah,
make it look warbandy. So, but there's so many variation of figures because I've got the Francesca, which is a throwing axe, and the Angon, which is a throwing spear. I'm starting to sort of look at doing one base with more static, relaxed figures, and another base with more active figures.
So what they do a bag of figures with lattes and small cakes
great.
and things.
There's an enormous amount of variation. There's guys running forward and that. I mean, I don't know. They just don't look right, but I'll work on it. I've got plenty of toys to paint.
Yeah.
And get it right in the end.
Also, if you mess up 1 or 2 of them, it's no big deal because you've got so many.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a matter of, getting the figures in the right combination on the bases.
Yeah, because you could use the warband with the throwing croissants and the double-handed baguette. You could use them as the elite ones. So that tends to give you that visual option of the more vibrant ones.
But Dave, are you making full use of your wet palette to be able to go back and forth with different colours?
Wet palettes. I've given up on the wet palette.
It's just too much mess, was it?
I don't know.
You're supposed to dip it up on you.
Yeah.
There's too much going on at the moment. Between the warbands mixtures, the rugby shirt or not to rugby shirt.
Yeah.
Because if you do too many rugby shirts, they start looking bloody ridiculous. Especially if you do yellow with light blue, that just doesn't work at all. You've got to do a dark yellow with a dark red.
Right.
Or these combinations.
Make it look like Dennis the Menace.
But the idea was the wet palette would have the ability to do all these different combinations of warband. You'd have all these various paints to mix on the palette, but
just doesn't work.
I'm sure that's what after 24 bases, the last 4 bases will be fantastic and done by wet palettes and all have rugby shirts.
Yeah,
but that's about 6 months' time.
But getting to that's kind of tricky. Okay, well, I think I've just got back to find that I've received through the post another Malifaux figure after painting those 6 or 8 the other week, and of Dr. Alexei Sokolov, who is an alternative sculpt for Joss, who's got a cybernetic arm and hits people very hard. This is something that I've been waiting to come in the post for almost a year, I think, but he's finally arrived. So I've got 132mm figure to do, and then I've got that real debate do I go for the Black Seas ships and try and do them for a break, or do I look and say, actually, we're now getting into middle of July, and I probably should crack on with the 28mm Arabs, because they're going to need a lot of making before I can actually undercoat them and all the rest of it. And then once they get undercoated, it's kind of a big sprayy, dryy army, and it will be September, October before we notice it. And if I start with some funny little ships, they're probably easier to do in the dark, possibly. And then I can kind of toy with the idea of buying some card markers and things. I think the other thing is obviously when and if and how gaming starts. I think there's tentative moves at Central London to get back to having 4 or 5 tables in the pub in a socially distanced way, which I think we've looked at and realised that if we just stick with 5 tables, we can keep them all the best part of 2 meters apart. And if people play with face masks, and only interact with the person that they're playing, it's probably possible to do it legally. There's some kind of sort of weird rules around social clubs and gatherings, which mean you kind of would need to sort of to live with the rules. You'd probably need to pre-arrange your game, arrive and just talk to the person that you're playing against, and then leave without chatting to other people. Because I think when you go to a pub, you're supposed to not chat to other groups of people, even if you know them. But how much that works or whatever, it's all a little bit weird. But I think there's kind of tentative moves to do that, and I think also there's, I'm toying with the idea of whether it is possible to set up a game outside. I've seen quite a few people on Facebook do that, and maybe if this weekend's a decent one, that's a possibility before it gets too dark in the evenings, because we've already gone past the longest day, and try and maybe do that over the weekend as well at some point. But I think my big thing is, one of the upsides of spending a week of doing DIY down in Devon, other than learning some new 6-inch paintbrush techniques, was I managed to break the handle of a fairly new broom that we got for outside, which finally means I now have a broom head with the plastic bristles of the right size that you can snip down for pikes. So that kind of half-hearted plastic thing that I did a few weeks ago with the Swiss that never quite worked, and everybody goes, buy a broom, buy a broom, buy a broom. And you think, I know buying a broom makes sense. It only costs like £8, but it's a really weird thing to do, and I'm not going to do it because it's just strange. I've now done that by accident. So I now own.
Well done.
Oh, that was by accident, was it?
It was exactly by accident. It's a complete accident.
Yeah, but Tim, what you could have done is even with an unbroken broom, you could just snip 1 or 2 bristles off and stick them on the Swiss to see if it works.
No, I've just gone for the whole broom head. I'm going to, the whole thing. So I've now got a broom head, so I can start doing that, which is another reason to do the 28mm Arabs as well, because I think it could work quite well for them.
Does that mean you've also got to do a Highland Army as well?
A Highland with the brooms? Is that, am I missing something?
Because they have a lot of mediocre pike, don't they?
They do, but I've already got sort of that Scots Army anyway, with those museum figures, where there's only about 2 or 3 poses, but they look like there's a lot more of them. And I think I saw somebody on again, Facebook had painted up this week. So I think the broom may well. You had
a game with that in a competition once, and it seemed like you had shitloads of these things.
Yeah, Simon did very well. Simon won all your games with that Scots Army, didn't you? Yeah, thrashed everybody.
5-0, 5-0.
It was epic, wasn't it? But so I think that probably is tipping me towards starting the Arabs, and that does also allow me to use the sprue cutting tool as well, which is a massive win.
Well, you didn't say you had a sprue cutting tool, so it's always a choice of shiny, something sharp that can cut fingers off. Yeah. You've got to go with that.
You know, there's a Dremel attachment for that.
There's a Dremel attachment for sprue cutting. Although, again, down in Devon, I put up some fencing and wiring with sort of some kind of wire like you would have on the edge of a ship kind of thing to do some of the fencing. So I've actually got a 2-foot long set of bolt cutters, so which do cut like this sort of 5mm thick wire very, very easily. Yeah, it's kind of good. So, if there's any trouble with these brush bristles, I've now got, all the stuff to do it, as well as a normal sprue splitter. So we'll see by next week whether I'm actually, high on Airfix glue smell and trying to, or missing.
Have you still got all your fingers?
Yeah, missing some fingers as well. So
I think there may be a future discussion of which brush provides the best bristles.
Best brush for the best bristles.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yes. Sorry, which DIY DIY cheap brush?
I go for the IKEA.
Outside floor brush. Good.
Yeah. I'm more a fan of the Tiger one, because you can get them for £1.
Yeah, that's only going to be like £2, isn't it? From Tiger.
It's more a bit Scandinavian, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
I just hope that my theme of the quiz this week, missing bits, wasn't prescient for members of the group.
Well, look, I think I think that brings us very neatly to our traditional ending of stay safe out there, and not only avoid the virus, but
don't drill anything you don't know what you're doing.
Don't drill anything you don't know what you're doing, and don't cut any of your own fingers off. Don't cut any of your own fingers off. Stay safe out there. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Mr. Lee Ray Mayer?
He's muted himself. I know he has.
No, so
Painting. He's fallen asleep.
Sorry, anything from? No. Okay.
no, I'm here. Sorry, I'm busy making a cup of tea for the wife.
Oh, right, more important.
Yeah, so hence turn the noise down.